what I want to show you is just a video of maximum velocity running mechanics, and I wanted you to pick out some things that you thought might be important within that. So as we go through, if you just perhaps have a look through, see what aspects of the run you think are really, really important. I'll just take it through this race and come through this. So just pick what aspects you think are really, really important in the maximum velocity mechanics running. So we've got the high knee, we've got the foot traveling backwards, really active contact, and foot driving off. The recovery, we've got a slight bend in the rear leg as it recovers through. Body's fairly static. There is some movement. Arms bent, come straight, but bent and closed at the back, bent at the front. They're not crossing the body, not rocking. And we can see sort of so much in there. That doesn't just come by accident. That's practiced. It's drilled. It's practiced when they run. It's fed back on. It's looked on. Everything else. So, actually, how do we drill that? How do we prepare them for that? So we'll start off looking at some of the maximum velocity running stuff. So important considerations, we just looked at body contact, body position, the ground contact position, where do the foot strike? If we went back right under the center of mass, if you took a line through the center of mass, the heel is on that line. We also see, and it's something we'll look at here, we also see the rear knee, because it recovers slightly bent, it's actually almost in line with the front knee on contact. So we're recovering that really quickly. We're seeing some really high knee lift. Foot coming backwards, leg recovery time, we're seeing excellent knee lift, good arm movement, which does open up, close at the front, close at the back, but not totally closed. You'll see a lot of athletes stopping and closing. It carries on coming through. It keeps a bend in it, which we'll look at. We see loads of force production, and we see it produced in different directions. We see the foot coming back, but we also see massive vertical forces going downwards into the track to propel them forwards again. So it's how you drill that, how you prepare that. And, I'm always sending the athletes videos to watch of other people running and saying, what do you see? How does that compare with what we do? What do you look at? Where do you come? What are you thinking about? What their contact's like? Compare theirs to yours. What do you see? What do you think? Because it gives them cues about what they've got to, they've got to focus on in their own drills and their own running. So the golden position, the athlete needs to be able to reach, it's a high knee flexed. Hopefully you can see my cursor on this. It's a high knee flex position. They need to get up to that position from the foot leaving the ground, and that drive off there. They need to come through in 33 hundredths of a second. No, it's not. It's 33 thousandths of a second. So 33,000. So about 300ths of a second from toe off to high knee flexion. That's a hugely fast movement. And that's whilst producing, forwards velocities for world-class sprinters of 12.5 meters a second and 10.9 for the women. That is a massive turnover of speed. And to do that, they've really got to be set up to fire that. And that's what we're going to have a look at, is how you set that up, what you do, how you bring that through. So arm position we looked at, maximum arm forwards, 55 degrees at the front, maximum back 80 degrees from the center of mass. Again, a bend in the arms. It doesn't close up. You'll see a lot of junior athletes thinking, blocking out the forearm that's coming forwards almost at the side and closing the arm. All that does is stop that knee flexion coming up and stop the knee coming up. So it actually reduces, and they feel really fast doing it, but it's actually reducing that knee coming up. So again, something that I try and really drill into them and really practice with them. Landing, really good, a really good cue for you to look at your athletes when you're drilling is just where they land and where this rear knee is on landing. So foot touch down, the heel is directly under the centre of mass. The heel is almost on the centre of mass, toe just slightly in front. Rear knee is almost in line with the front knee, just a slight gap in there, but is almost in line with that. So it's really good when you're sort of setting up the drills and you're looking at stuff. Are they in that position? Have I got them in that position? If not, what do I need to change? If they're here, if their knees way behind, it tends to be that the hips are turned off and the bum's pushed back, rather than thinking about setting up. So it's something we'll look at, is how you set up the athletes. So looking at those sort of things in reality, I'll just take this through frame by frame. Just have a look where the foot lands, have a look at the recovery, have a look at the arms, what they do. So we've recovered there. Foot's landed. We can see slight gap in the knee. We can see, if you look under the centre of mass, heel is almost on that centre of mass. You can see people who are falling where it's showing that camera's there, but Earway is trying to chase it down and race. You can see that, the knee's in, but if you take it through its centre of mass, heel's well in front. You've got massive braking forces there. You're losing time, you're decelerating, even though in your own mind you're thinking, I'm chasing this down, I'm accelerating. And it's that practice all the time that really starts to get your athletes focused on, this is what I need to do, this is how I do it. So how do we drill this? I personally start my drills with smaller movements and move up to fuller movements. So we'll start doing small stuff and we'll build it up. I take all of our drills out into a run because if you're working on a certain aspect, I try and get them to think about taking that into their running, that little aspect we're working on, and then we build that up over time. So we layer the drills. We start off small movements. We add in another movement. We add in another movement. We add in another movement, which we'll look at. And by doing that, I build up into basically, full out running. And we just get them to build up the running, get them to build up the focus, and give them things each time they go off, give them, and they might do 2 or 3 of each runs. We might go back if I'm seeing something that across the board they're all doing wrong. So if the contacts are dropping, we might go back and do some of the basic contact stuff to start off with. And then we build it up and build up the sort of drill as we go through the drill set. And as I said, sometimes we might do 1 drill set, we might do 2 drill sets. But that's where we do it. I keep them simple, as I've said, different from Mike. I don't mix my drills. I don't want a high knee and a recovery. I build it up into runs. So I don't want, one leg doing one thing, one leg doing another. I don't do a lot of the tripling where you run and just do one leg, run and just do one leg. We tend to really focus on the running action, build up the running action. And that's just a personal thing for me. And I see lots of people sort of doing, we'll do sort of 6 clawbacks, 6 step through, 6 high knees. I'll do sort of the clawbacks, the step throughs, then the high knees. But I'll build them all up together and do it that way rather than try and mix it up and overcomplicate it. Just a personal thing. And I know lots of other coaches do something else. It's what's right for you and your athletes. Vertical force production. So this is sort of first set of drills we look at is producing that force downwards and that reaction off the track. So really loading up, and we've looked at this in the maximum velocity mechanics presentations quite a lot. So we really look here at setting up the core mainly so that they can control what they're doing. We really look at where the hips are set, making sure that the hips are engaged and set up. They've elongated the core, they've controlled the core, but everything else is fairly even. Possible use of a broom. I'll show you an example of that. Focus on a really tight foot and solid ankle joint. Tend not to talk about dorsiflexion because the athletes tend to think about pulling the foot up too high. We tend to think about tightening the foot and creating a really solid ankle joint that they can, when they hit the track, that it absorbs. And if you look at world-class athletes, they're hitting the track, there's a gap on the heel. You look at some of the hurdlers, there's massive gaps as they come down, but they're able to control that force and it doesn't collapse. So we talk a lot about tight foot and tight solid ankle joints, and we talk a lot to tighten the foot is just focus on pulling the little toe out very slightly. I've not put that in here as one of the cues. I just remembered it as we were talking through. So we talk about just pulling this little toe out, not pulling the whole foot out, but just trying to spread that little toe out a tiny bit. And it really starts them to focus on tightening the foot. We focus on the reactive and fast vertical contacts at first, but then slowly build up into horizontal movement backwards with vertical force then produced off it. So that's the sort of how we layer it up and build it up. And the reason for that is, if your athlete is moving forwards, if they just try and produce vertical force without pulling the foot backwards, A, it will land well in front of the centre of mass, but B, it's a massive braking force for them. So the foot has to be coming back at least at the speed they're coming forwards. World-class athletes, it's well faster. So it has to be coming back at least at the speed they're coming forwards. And then they have to produce the massive vertical force production downwards by sort of almost slamming the foot into the track to load up the Achilles, the calves, all the tendons in the foot, so that they get that stretch reflex reaction that we've talked about previously. So progression, I'll show you the videos of these. Initially start with double foot vertical contacts, then they'll do some single foot vertical contacts. You'll find some of the younger ones will find the single foot stuff really difficult to do. Then we'll bring in the backwards foot movement, not backwards movement, but the foot traveling backwards with a vertical contact. All of those are taken out into a run, and we'll mix up some of how we bring that backwards movement and the vertical contact. We'll try and bring in some knee lift with those movements in and the vertical contact, and I'll show you some of the drills that we do for that. Again,
Graham, can I just put in there and say, as you go through any of the videos, somebody's just mentioned that everyone's got different names for drills and asking what clawbacks are.
I will show you clawbacks. It's basically pullbacks. I will show you the clawbacks. It's basically a very tight pullback. So it's you'll find the new athletes focus on the kicking away from the body rather than pulling the foot back. It's a really tight movement where the foot's only coming a few inches away from the body, but the focus is pulling the foot back, pulling the foot back, pulling the foot back, pulling the foot back. So it's a real fast pullback action. So you'll see that as we go through. I've not put names on any of the drills. Probably a good thing, because you can put your own names to them then and use them to, whatever. And I don't really have names for them, actually. I just say, this is what we're doing, and don't really have names for the drills. So could I say thank you to Harry? He's rusty as hell. He's been training, but not doing the quality stuff that we would have been hoping for at this time of year. But he met me down at the track. We managed to get in, and he met me down the track and just went through some of the drills. So it's hard being put up in front of everybody, but he willingly obliged and said he would do it. So this is the first one. This is sort of the sort of clawback. Double foot bounce. So just double foot, really reactive. Try not to bend the knees. Really reactive. Trying to absorb force, get the foot tight, absorb force, and react off. Normally would have taken that into a run. Then we've got the single foot one. You can see a lot. You'll find the younger athletes really struggle to do this, but be really reactive off the track, really try and get some height off the track. So actually anticipate the track, work down and backwards, and really react off. That's a longer clawback than I would have liked. I would have liked that to have been a bit shorter, but that's where we're starting to bring some of the backwards movements. We'd have started off having a smaller movement than that at first, and I might have some videos I can drop in actually on the presentation. We'd have started off with a much tighter movement first and then built up into that. So their focus is foot back, but react off, foot back, react off, foot back and react off, foot back and react off. And it's keeping that foot really tight, reacting off, but then building it up after sort of 10, 15 meters, building it up into a run. Then we start to bring high knee, foot back, react off the track, high knee, foot back, react off the track. So again, you can start to see the layering into the drills. If I can get it to play. So sort of the classic A skip. Play that one again. We talked to the athletes. It's quite an interesting one, that. We talked to the athlete. I talked to them a lot about not allowing the foot to get away from them. And we talked about that in the drill, is not letting that foot sort of get away from the body. The foot sort of stays in control and tight. So the movement, if you sort of look back at those videos, once you're in high knee position, the foot's underneath. As the knee comes down, the leg starts to straighten. But at no stage does the foot come away from the knee. At no stage does the foot sort of accelerate away. So the knee comes down and the foot then starts straightening. It's only right at the end, right at the sort of very contact point, we almost get a really straight leg, where then the foot really wallops backwards and downwards into the track. And it's for that reason you talk about the sort of exactness of the drills. I don't do the B skip, because the B skip's great for hurdlers, but the foot gets away from the body. And at no stage, I've had this argument with a couple of coaches, again, my personal view, at no stage does a foot come away from the body unless you're hurdling. So for the sprinters, why teach that? If you're doing it as a mobility thing, put it in the mobility section. Because it's a very different thing for me than focusing on, actually this is what we want to do in the drills. And that perhaps sort of gives you a sort of insight into the philosophy of what we do and how we do it. So, that may come into the mobility stuff, the warm-up stuff. But when we get into drills, it is really about how they run, how they're going to run, and what they're going to do. This is one of the other ones, a split pogo one, just creating height, knee coming up, foot back. This was first lockdown when we could get together a few points. And you can actually see how much height is generated through there. Again, need to change the arm slightly, change some of the things, change perhaps some of the chest positions, where the hips are, but you can start to see the height and force generated through those. This is one where I've got one of the 11, 12-year-old girls doing it, and she's collapsing all over the place. Would I have carried on doing this with her? No, I wouldn't. We'd have stripped this out, gone back to some of the basics, gone back to some of the stability stuff before we'd brought that in. So, and this is almost high knees into a run almost straight away. So really thinking about into the running action, popping, foot coming back, and reactive contact off. So that's pretty much how I layer the sort of foot contact drills and build it up into almost a running drill, but with a real focus on active foot contact, not thinking about the recovery. That's a separate set of drills, but really focusing on sort of the vertical and active foot contact.